Hello again everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another speed build video in The Sims 4. I hope you're all having the most amazing day ever so far and thank you so much for joining me here today. So it's been a while, it's been a few weeks since I last uploaded on the channel, so first and foremost I would like to apologise for the unintentional break there, but I am back. I've been busy with in real life stuff such as work and doing things around the house like decorating and just life in general, so I apologise for the lack of uploads recently, but we are in Brindleton Bay today on this 40 by 40 lot and we are building a Cape Cod-style family house for essentially 8 Sims of different generations. So this is definitely and has been built intentionally to house like a generation's sort of style type of family gameplay. So we have a bedroom for the grandparents, they have their own ensuite. In fact, they've actually got their own sort of space of the house, which is kind of nice. But obviously when we move on to the interior of the house, I'll be pointing out each of the rooms and who they belong to, etc. We've got a room for the parents, we've got a room for a teenager, a room for a child, and then a room for a toddler and also an infant as well. So 8 Sims in this house. I was initially thinking that they were going to have some sort of pet because when I was doing the kitchen I decided to pop a pet bowl in there, which I quickly deleted because in my head I was thinking, well, no, because we're going to have 8 Sims, so you're going to have a full house essentially with this particular build. And it's because first and foremost I haven't actually built a generations style family house for what seems like a really long time. I think if I were to look back on my builds and on my channel, it will have been at some point last year, I would have thought. So it has been a while and someone did suggest it as one of my sort of next building videos and I added it to my build list and thought, I was sort of going down the list and I was thinking, what's going to inspire me to build something in The Sims today? And for some reason on this particular day I was thinking I'm really sort of into building a Cape Cod style of house, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then it's been a while since I've done a generations house, so why not sort of integrate both of those ideas and make the house that you can see here. So overall I'm very pleased with this. I did find a couple of reference images on Pinterest that I will pop on the screen for you now so that you can see. I kind of mashed these two build ideas together to create what we ended up sort of building and finalizing in The Sims 4, and I actually think they look, I mean, I was thinking in my head, how can I kind of integrate these two images into a build? And initially I was thinking, oh, I'm not sure this is going to really work. I wasn't sure what sort of color scheme I wanted to go for with this, and then I don't know, something happened and I sort of used different elements of each of the builds that I found and created this, and I think it kind of works really nicely. We used this brick siding from the Horse Ranch pack, so it looks kind of rustic, and then we used this blue siding from, I believe this is from Adventure Awaits. Who knew that Horse Ranch and Adventure Awaits would look so good together? And then paired with, we've got some doors from Horse Ranch, and then the windows are from Cats and Dogs because we are building in Brindleton Bay, which is the world that came with Cats and Dogs. So I always feel like, you know, if you're going to build in a world, why not use the windows that came with the pack that the world came with? I just think it makes the most sense. But yeah, overall I'm quite pleased with this. I think it's a style of house that I have tried to build before, a Cape Cod style, and the last one I did was, I believe, last summer I released it on the channel and I was actually quite surprised at how it turned out. So I thought, well, I've done it before so I can do it again, although this does have a very different, I think, overall vibe and style to it, although we've still got obviously the Cape Cod. I say it's Cape Cod, it definitely is Cape Cod, and that's just mainly because of the way the roof looks and of course the color schemes, etc. and what we decided to do on the interior of the house as well. It's kind of got a bit of a ranch feel to it though as well, which I kind of liked. So it's a bit of a mashup of, I'd say, different styles, which are overarched by the Cape Cod style, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, because I feel like I'm rambling, so I apologise for that. But yes, it's a big house. It's 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. We have a swimming pool, there's a balcony out back, there's plenty of activities for your Sims to get involved in, such as gardening, and there's a play area for the kids as well. There's plenty of seating areas, there's a barbecue, like anything that you can really think of. I tried to incorporate into this build because I was thinking of that really big sort of family style of gameplay that you would likely have if you had a family that you've had for generations and generations, and you're the sort of simmer who never moves them out. I feel like if I was super into family gameplay, I feel like I would have a really hard time moving Sims out of houses. So I think that's another reason that generations family houses, I think, are so nice to work on, and it's quite fascinating when you're going through it because you're having to think about not only the different ages of Sims that you have all under one roof, but what sort of activities they might like as well. So it's kind of interesting when you're building these sort of styles of family houses, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks quite nice. We do make some changes here and there just when I move on to the interior. Now the interior, just speaking of it, I did try to floor plan this house on 3 different occasions before I managed to land on the final floor plan that you see as the viewer. I mean, I filmed all of them, but I didn't want you to have to watch me struggle through each of the attempts, because as a viewer and a viewing experience, it's not the best. So while I was editing the footage, I did take all that out because it just... this house, it's so bottom heavy, and what I mean by that is there's a lot more space on the ground floor than there is on the top floor. So when you're coming to floor planning a build like that, I do find it quite challenging. And usually what I would do is I would sort of lean on Pinterest to try and find a floor plan that I think would work, because obviously, as you can see, if you remember when I shared the reference images that I'd found on Pinterest, one of them did actually have a floor plan, and the floor plan was great, but we didn't have enough bedrooms. So we do actually have 3 bedrooms on the ground floor of this house, and then 2 bedrooms and a big bathroom on the upper floor, which I think for family gameplay it works out quite nicely. So you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments down below on the layout of this house. Obviously not now, because we don't know what it looks like unless you skip ahead, which you are more than welcome to do. But you'll have to let me know if it's something that you don't mind. And then I was also contemplating adding a playroom to this build as well, because I've spoken about this a few times on the channel, where if I'm building a family house, I love adding playrooms. Unfortunately, with the 5 bedrooms and the 3 bathrooms, there just wasn't room for a playroom. So I was a little bit upset about that, but I was trying not to be too hard on myself, because I think when you see this house from the outside, you think, oh yeah, it's a decent sized house. I wouldn't necessarily think, oh, this has got 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. So it's quite deceptive, but none of the rooms are particularly small. I think probably one of the smallest rooms is the living room, but there's still plenty of space in there for probably not all 8 Sims to sit down. Although, hang on a minute. I don't know, actually. We'll have to have a look. I'll have to jog my memory when we move on to the interior. But you know, the kitchen dining space is quite big, because I wanted to leave you all the opportunity to have space for your Sims to sit down and have a meal, etc. So that was really important to me. But we are currently working on the landscaping here. Now, I do make some amendments. I'm just trying to remember if I made them on camera or off camera, because I think I got a little bit giddy with the landscaping, and so I was kind of looking at it and thinking, oh, it just looks a little bit too overwhelming, so I do tone it back. But I can't remember if I do that on camera or off camera. I feel like I did it on camera, but don't hold me to that because I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, the landscaping, it looks all right. And then this is when it starts to look a little bit overwhelming, because I decide to add some rocks just to the front here for a little bit more detailing, which I feel like I could have maybe not added as many so that it looks a little bit less busy, but it's all down to personal preference. So obviously if you do decide to download this house and you think, oh, I think I might just landscape this a little bit differently, like, I wouldn't blame you at all. I think because of the shape of the house, where it was located, and then where I decided to put the terrain paint as well, I was thinking that I could sort of fill in any gaps with landscaping. So, you know, flowers, bushes, trees, etc. And then obviously the rocks. And I don't know, I think maybe it looks a little bit overwhelming. I'm not sure. There's people who are watching this probably thinking, no, this looks really good. And there might be other people going, yeah, I agree, actually. There probably is a little bit too much. But I was just trying to think again about activities that your Sims could do on this lot. So we do add a swing set out front here. There's a little bench underneath this big tree on the left, which I just love. I love the idea of that, because if I lived in this house in real life, I would absolutely take my favourite drink, whether that's in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, out to that bench, and I would just sit and watch the world go by. Like, there's something so soothing and kind of relaxing about that thought. And so I was like, oh, I just thought your Sims would probably like to do that, maybe with their morning coffee before work, or I don't know, maybe they see the kids go off to school, and I don't know, it was just such a cute idea. So that's what I decided to add there. And then for a brief moment, I do go to the debug menu from the cottage living pack and decide to pull out this grass detailing. Although, again, when I was looking at this off camera, I was like, it just looks too busy, it's too much. So I do remove those off camera. So in the next shot, you'll see that they've been removed because, yeah, I don't mind the way they look necessarily. I just think it makes it look a little bit like there's just too much going on, you know? So I do tone that back, and I used those really cute powder blue flowers from, I think they're from Life and Death, from the debug menu. I remember when that pack first came out, and me being a builder, one of the first things I did was head to the debug menu for the landscaping, just to see, because I do it with every pack that comes out, apart from recently, because I haven't been installing the new packs recently for obvious reasons, which I won't get into in this video. But that's one of the things that I used to do when a pack first came out. I would head to the debug menu for the landscaping, and I'd be like, "Ooh, look at this!" And it really surprised me with Life and Death just how many stunning flowers we got with that pack. So I was like, okay, let's use them here as well. And then I decided to change some of the trees out, because I don't know, there was just something about the other ones that just wasn't sitting quite right with me the more I was looking at it. So I ended up using these trees from the cats and dogs pack. So again, I think it just helps the house blend a little bit better with the surrounding world, because obviously we're in Brindleton Bay again. And I feel like it's been a while since I've built here. I'm trying to think of the last time I actually built in this world, and it's one of my favourite ones, I must say, because there's something extremely sort of homey and nostalgic about it, but I'm not really sure what it is. That the world just has this quality about it that really makes it feel homey to me, and it's one of my favourite worlds to build in. I think it's one of a lot of people's favourite worlds to build in. But speaking of favourite worlds, like, you'll have to let me know in the comments down below what your favourite world is in The Sims 4 and why. I think if I really had to choose, I adore San Sequoia, which is the world that came with Growing Together. I really like building there. It's got kind of a nice balance between suburban living and also like city living as well. You can kind of see like the water and the bridge and things like that depending on where you decide to build. So I think it might be San Sequoia. Don't get me wrong, I love decorating apartments in San Myshuno. I nearly forgot the name of the world that came with the city living pack just for a second there. I love decorating apartments in San Myshuno, but yeah, I think it might be San Sequoia for me. So I'd be interested to hear what your favourite worlds are. But anyway, yes, I'm just adding a few more activities out here. So I added some planter boxes as well as the water sprinkler from the seasons pack, because your Sims can actually play in that, so it's something else for the kids to do. One thing I did not add to this build, and it's just reminded me, I didn't add the hopscotch from the For Rent pack. Which was it, For Rent, or was it from Growing Together that we got the hopscotch? I think it could be For Rent. But I didn't add that in this build, and it's so unusual for me not to add hopscotch to a family house. So that's probably something else that I definitely could have added, but just completely forgot to do with this particular house, and I'm not entirely sure why. An oversight on my part. Absolutely. But now we're working on the side / back of the build, just making sure that all the windows are there, etc. Because I've spoken about this many times on the channel, where I've said I'll only keep working on a build if I feel it's worth my time. And let me explain if you are new here. So what I'll do is I'll start on the front of a build, and then if I'm sure that it's a build that I want to keep working on, then I'll work on the back of it. But if it's something that I'm not convinced I'm going to work on, then I might stop and then revisit it. If I'm still not, if I still haven't fallen in love with it, then I'll just bulldoze the lot. But I can't think of anything worse than doing the front, side and the back of a build, and then you look at it and then you go, oh, I don't actually like it, so I feel like I've spent all that time on it and I've just wasted my time because I don't even like the build. So I'll nail down, I'll sort of like get the front of the build sorted and situated and make sure that I'm happy with it, and then I will move on to other areas of the build. So that's exactly what I did with this house as well. This is no exception. It is just the way that I work when I'm building. Anyway, we're kind of trying to work out the back garden here. So we do add a pool because I think, with a generations house of this size, I think adding a pool is just good sense, really, because again, it's just something else for your Sims to do. I think this family enjoy throwing pool parties, and I think this is probably the house that everyone comes to for birthdays, for Winterfest, for Harvest Fest, like for Easter or whatever the occasion may be. You name it, this is probably where the family is. I think that the family that live here, they like to entertain friends and family, etc. Of course, they do have their immediate close family living all under the same roof, so which is kind of a nice thought. But of course, if you have a family, like an 8-sim family, and it's not a generations style family, then all you would really need to do is switch out a few of the rooms. So the grandparents' bedroom, which is located on the ground floor, I would possibly make that the parents' bedroom. And then you can kind of divvy up the spaces for the rest of the bedrooms as you saw fit. But yeah, again, I was just thinking it's been a while since I've done a generations style family house. So that's just what I had in mind when I was decorating this. But it's quite versatile in that if you have a different dynamic of family, then you could just change it up a little bit on the interior and it would make a really fantastic, just big family home as well, which is kind of exciting. But yeah, so you can see the playground, quote unquote. I don't like calling it a playground when it's on their own house, but like their play area for the kids we've got going on there. So I was also thinking, okay, so we've got to have a toddler pool. The swimming pool can be used by the child upwards, so child, teen, adult, and then the grandparents as well. We've got the monkey bars, a couple of slides here, but also slides for toddlers too, because of course we've got different varying ages. We've got varying ages in this house, so you've really got to think, okay, what would these Sims enjoy doing? And then I do decide to add a sunken hot tub here. I think this is from, again, Adventure Awaits, which I love. I love a sunken hot tub. I feel like they don't necessarily take up less space, but they look like they take up less space compared to the other hot tubs we have in game because they're sunken into the floor, whereas the other hot tubs we have are sat above the floor. So, and then that horrible one that we got in a base game update a few years ago as part of I think it was The Sims turning not 25, was it 20? I can't remember. And they gave us this free hot tub in a base game update, and it's the most hideous thing you've ever seen in your life. One of the swatches is okay, and then the rest of them I'm like, I try to avoid it like the plague, to be completely honest. So anyway, sunken hot tub is the way forward, so I do add that to the back garden as well. We've got a chicken coop here, we've got some planter boxes, again, various sort of places for your Sims to sit down and eat as well. So yeah, I don't think your Sims are ever going to be bored here, which is kind of awesome. There's nothing worse than if you're moving into a big house like this and there's nothing really for you and your Sims to actually do. There's plenty of space, but actually activity-wise, what have your Sims got to do? I've also got a gardening table here, bee boxes. I did add the water balloon bucket as well, so that your Sims can have water balloon fights. So it's kind of nice. And we've also got a fire pit as well. I forgot I added the fire pit. That was a good idea on my part as well. So your Sims can roast marshmallows and just trade stories out here as well, which I thought was a really sweet idea. We've also got the Lilo in the pool, so your Sims can obviously play with that. And yeah, I tried to separate the spaces as well, looking back on the footage. I'm not entirely happy, I don't think, with how I divvied up the spaces here, but I think it looks all right. I think if I were to do this again, I would lay out the backyard / side yards out very differently. But we live and learn each time we build, and yeah, it's just something that I would potentially change for next time. But yeah, the bee boxes are a fun one as well, because I'm not sure if the bees help with the pollination of the plants, like the plants that you plant in the planter boxes. I'm not sure if that's the case. I feel like as I'm saying it, that does sound right, but I could be completely wrong. So if I am wrong, please correct me in the comments down below. Or if I'm right, then yay me. I should get bonus points for that, because I do not typically play The Sims. I would, 99 times out of 100, I'm building. So yeah. Anyway, and something else that I feel like I should mention too, because you will see it at the end of the video when we do the live walkthrough, because I'll talk about that in just a second as well. But I did add the debug fencing from the base game the back of the pool, just to kind of fence everything in. And then when I tried to place the build down from the gallery, I sometimes do that to make sure that the build places with everything where it should be. For some reason, it deleted the fencing. So, and it's fencing that I added off camera as well, because when I finished the build, I was sat there and I was like, it looks a little bit weird, the fact that it's not fenced in. And because it was so close to the edge of the lot line, I wasn't able to add a fence, like a proper fence. So I added a debug one instead, and it looked so much better. So after I uploaded it to the gallery, for some reason when you place the lot, that fence completely disappears. I'm not entirely sure if that's because technically when I placed the fencing, it was very close to being off the edge of the lot, and maybe the game just doesn't recognize that I'd placed the items there, especially when they're debug as well. So just keep that in mind when we're doing the live walkthrough at the end of the video, because that's what I was going to say. I've been taking people's feedback on board. So I'd asked in one of my previous speed builds at some point, I'd asked people, do you prefer, at the end of my videos, do you prefer the sort of like the beautiful screenshots with the ambient music, etc. playing, or do you prefer when we do a live walkthrough where I'm talking through, this is the living room and sort of leads off to here? And most people, not by much, but the majority of people had said that they'd preferred a live walkthrough of the build. So I've been doing a mixture of both. I can't tell you the last time I took screenshots and put them at the end of a video, which is, it's fine. Some people prefer it, some people don't. So I've started to do live walkthroughs now at the end of my videos, which is kind of nice because it means that I don't have to edit like 1,000,001 screenshots, but also it gives me the opportunity to kind of just have a bit of a conversation about the house that we've just built, which is nice. And the live walkthrough seems to be super helpful to most people. So that's what I've started doing. And what I'll also do is for this live walkthrough, I will make sure that I get and stop over like the bird's eye view of the house, so you can see kind of how it's laid out, because in my screenshots, I would always add the floor plans. And you could pause it, and obviously if you were building along with me and you wanted to try and create something similar to this, then you could kind of use that to help lay out your houses as well. But yeah, what I'll start doing is I'll leave the camera there, we'll have a little bit of a chat, and then you can take a snip or a screenshot or whatever you need to do if you are building along. So speaking of the interior, we have actually started floor planning. So when you walk into the house, the stairs are off to the left, which I think I should get bonus points for, because typically you'll walk into the house and the stairs will be right there. Whereas with this house, because it was so big, it really did allow me to sort of think about different stair placements and different floor plans. So I did set the stairs off slightly here, and it just meant that the upstairs worked really well too. So I'm quite pleased with that, to be honest. And the stairs look like they're there intentionally as well, which I was quite happy with. But the first room that we work on is the living room, and I actually I wanted the interior to match the exterior. And what I mean by that is that I wanted to kind of stick with this bluish theme without it being too in your face, because obviously the paneling on the outside of the build is like a baby powder blue. And so I thought, oh, we could kind of bring that in a little bit with the interior too. So I do add some blue to these rooms, which is kind of nice because for those of you that don't know, I love blue in real life. My husband and mine's house in real life, we have a lot of this dark blue. And we've just now started to introduce burnt oranges to our house in real life. And I said to him, I was like, why have we not done this sooner? But yeah, so when I'm doing it in The Sims, when I'm sort of introducing blue, it's kind of nice for me because it feels more like home. So you'll have to let me know what you think of the interior of this house. But I used a few items from a few different packs. The sofas are from the Horse Ranch pack. The rug, I think, is from Life and Death, I believe. And then a few items from Cats and Dogs, of course, a few base game items, Horse Ranch items. And I had the best time with this. I really did. I think everything works really well. I also did something a little bit different here. So those barn doors that lead off to what will be the kitchen and dining room, I thought I've never used them on the interior of a house before, and I just loved that idea. They don't close in gameplay, I don't believe. I can't imagine they would. But I kind of imagined that if they did, let's pretend for a second that you can close these doors. It's just nice because you can separate the two spaces off, or you can leave the doors open to have them more sort of together, which I thought was a really nice idea. So the living room, it's not big, especially when you consider that there are 8 Sims living here. But I think considering, I'm not really sure, how many times would you have all 8 Sims in the living room? And this is a genuine question now, and it's a question for people who are into family gameplay, but particularly Generations style family gameplay. Where would you have all 8 Sims in here or not? Did I do the right thing and not necessarily add 8 seats in here? There are 7, because I think you can fit 3 Sims on each of the sofas and then a Sim in the armchair. So 7. Bearing in mind that one of the Sims is an infant, so they wouldn't be able to sit down anyway. So technically, if one of the parents or one of the grandparents or even the teen was sat on one of the sofas with the infant, I suppose technically you could have all 8 Sims in here if you really wanted to. But yeah, I'd just be really interested to hear if that is something that you even do, or if I'm overthinking it and this living room is perfectly fine just the way it is for this particular family. But yeah, we just had a few kind of decorative pieces here, and then I realized, I was like, oh, there isn't necessarily anything for the kids to do in here, so I do end up adding a toy box just as one final finishing item. Usually I would add things like a colouring table, an infant playmat, but I didn't necessarily want this space to feel too cramped because it's not the biggest living room in the world considering the size of the house itself, so I didn't want anything to feel too overwhelming. You can fit an infant playmat in here if that is something that you want to add, so please feel free. But there goes the toy box, because I was thinking, okay, well, we need to have something in here. So I do end up adding that there. And then we move on to the downstairs bathroom, which is a full bathroom. We have a shower bath combination in here, as well as a sink and a toilet. And then I wanted to try and stick with the blue kind of colour scheme, so I do end up placing these tiles down initially, but I thought they looked a little bit too dated for this particular house. I love these tiles, but I didn't think they necessarily went with the overall vibe of this house, so I do end up switching them out for the wallpaper from the Grange mudroom kit, believe it or not, because up until yesterday when I finished this house, I did not know that kit came with wallpapers, and the wallpaper is so gorgeous as well. So I do end up using that wallpaper in all of the bathrooms and the kitchen too. So when we move on to the hallway, where I do use a lot of items from the Grange mudroom kit, that's when I found, look, you can see me here, there it goes, look how beautiful that wallpaper is. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is perfect for the bathrooms here. And it just fit with the overall house a little bit better, I think anyway. So this is the hallway. Now the Grange Mudroom kit, when this kit first came out, I remember saying, this is going to be such a lifesaver for those builds where you have a slightly bigger hallway than, you know, a typical, especially my sort of style of family houses where there's basically no hallway whatsoever. But this kit came in so handy for this particular hallway. So I was like, oh yes, perfect. So we've got like a little seating area here. The wardrobes, quote unquote, that actually function as wardrobes, which is, I think, so handy if you are wanting to change your Sims in and out of clothes, just to add a little bit more realism to gameplay. So they might change into their comfy clothes, for example, when they've come in from work or school or whatever, and then they can just go straight into the living room or the kitchen or wherever and just chill out. So I kind of like that idea, and especially functionality wise as well, I thought that worked out quite nicely. And then I just add a few sort of like decorative pieces in here because it really was quite a large space and I didn't know really what I wanted to do with it. So I just kind of put a few items down and hoped for the best, really. So I think it looks quite nice. We've got a handbag on here, a plant, a nice candle, because candles in builds are just a big yes. I mentioned this in one of my more recent videos, and the amount of people that commented and they were like, oh, you do that too? Because I love candles in real life, so I always add loads of candles to my Sims builds. And I was like, I have found my people. So we have our hallway in our house in real life, and we always have a big beautiful candle, so that when you walk in it just smells incredible. I'm pretty sure it's lit at the moment, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So now we've moved on to the kitchen dining room, and I think this is actually pretty decent space, and I'm glad I didn't separate it off too much, like having the kitchen dining space as two separate rooms. So I think this layout works quite nicely, and I do use these counters from the Country Kitchen kit, I think, but I was going to use the matching cabinets, and for some reason I couldn't get on board with them. So I actually ended up using cabinets from Life and Death, which I feel like I'm saying Life and Death a lot in this build, which surprises me because of the type of house that it is. But I do remember when that pack first came out, I was pleasantly surprised with the build and buy, because it was very versatile. It wasn't necessarily themed too much with the Life and Death pack itself, if that makes sense. So yeah, I was very pleased to see that I could use a few items from that pack in this build. And then we use these, I call them like wispy floaty curtains, which I absolutely adore. They're from is it the Modern Lux kit, I think? Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. And then I did use these like curtain / drape things, the checkered ones. They're from Cats and Dogs, which initially I kept looking at them and I was like, oh, I just don't think they work all that well. But then the more I definitely warmed to them. By the time I finished the kitchen, I was like, oh, I'm actually really glad that I kept them there, actually, because I wanted for the interior of this house, I wanted it to be quite, not necessarily modern and not necessarily contemporary either, but I wanted to have kind of elements of more traditional style furniture pieces, just to pay homage to the fact that it's more of like a Cape Cod-style house, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I'm hoping it does, but anyway, yeah. And then we start to clutter the kitchen. I did make sure to leave one counter free, although looking back, considering this is a generation style family house, what I should have done is kept 2 counters free for the cooking together interaction, because I think maybe the grandparents and the parents want to teach their kids how to cook, and it's just something that would have been really nice. So I think maybe you could just declutter one of the other counters. It's another oversight from my part, but it's something that I have realised that I need to do. So I apologise for that. But it's such a nice kitchen, it's such a nice space, and I think we cluttered it just right too. I used a lot of the clutter items from the kitchen clutter kit. Wow, that was a mouthful. From the kitchen clutter kit, which I thought worked beautifully. We've got a food processor here, we've got a coffee machine, a microwave. I did end up adding a dishwasher as well. Did I add I did add a sink. Oh my gosh, I thought for a second I'd forgotten to add a kitchen sink, which has happened, by the way, before. Yes, it has happened in the past, so it wouldn't have surprised me if I'd done it again. I also remembered to add a bin in here. There have been many times where I've forgotten to add a bin to my kitchens, which I've been called out on many a time. Quite rightly so, because who does that? Clearly me. But yeah, I loved how the clutter looked in here. I think this is a very well-loved room. I think this room is used probably a lot by the family. I do. And it's definitely a space that I would enjoy being in if I lived here. It's probably the heart of the home. Not necessarily the living room. I think they enjoy hanging out in the living room, but I think there's a little bit more space for the entire family to hang out here. So I think this is probably used a little bit more by the family, which we love. And we've got this nice big dining table here, which I could have definitely added 2 more dining chairs in there. So before anyone comes to me, I am so sorry that I didn't do that. But please feel free to add 2 more if you would like to. The reason that I didn't is because we had the bar there, like the kitchen island with the bar stools. So I was thinking they might just have looked like there were too many chairs there, you know? Anyway, so that's that room done. And then we've moved on to the, I'm going to call this the grandparents' suite, because it's a very large space for the grandparents. They have their own ensuite here. They have their own access to this portion of the house as well from the outside, which I thought was kind of a nice idea. And they've also got access to this area of the house from the interior too. But obviously, if you wanted to completely separate this area off, all I would do is remove the internal door, which means that you would have a little bit more quote-unquote space and flexibility in the living room as well. But I wanted to give you Sims the option, because I've done it before where I've done something and then people have said, well, I would have wanted it like this. And then I've thought, well, that's a fair comment, because it's something that I could have put in, and then if you don't want it, you can delete it rather than adding it in yourself. So if the door bothers you and you want this area of the house to be a little bit more separated, intentionally separated, then just remove the interior door. Now, I was initially thinking of giving them their own kitchen space in here, like their own little kitchenette. But what I decided instead was to give them their own kind of living space. And I'm using the term living space very loosely, because it's not really a living space, although they do have some seating, like a seating area over here. They also have a little fireplace, which I just thought was the cutest idea ever. I was just obsessed with this. So yeah, they do have their own living space. They've got plenty of things to do in here. There's a bookcase, we've got a wardrobe, we've also got a chest of drawers as well. And again, them having their own ensuite just means that they've got that flexibility to be a little bit more independent, which I thought was kind of nice for gameplay too. So something else I could have added in here was a few more activities for the kids, so that maybe they could do things together with their grandparents. But I also added near the armchair like a little sewing kit. I think that means that your Sims knitting kit. It's because it looks like a sewing kit. Or is it a knitting kit? Now that I've said it out loud, I'm not entirely sure, but it's just another activity for your Sims to get involved in, which I thought was kind of a nice idea. I do clutter up this little chest of drawers here just with clutter that I thought grandparents would have. We've obviously got like a more dated clock in here. So I feel like the grandparents probably bought a few pieces of furniture from their own house when the young adults or adults of this house asked them to move in. So I think there's certain elements that look probably a little bit more dated. And then there's other parts of the room that look a little bit more quote unquote on the more modern side. So I wanted to try and include those two stark differences to try and make a space that was a little bit more personable. And then we just decorate their ensuite here. It's a very big ensuite. I think I could have maybe made this a little bit smaller, but I always think in terms of gameplay, rooms can never really be too big. I mean, they can, because I think when rooms are too big, I can never decorate them quite right, and they always look a little bit silly. But I think with bathrooms especially, I don't really think you can go wrong. And I'm saying that, although the bathroom on the upper floor is huge. Like, I was initially thinking that was just going to be a bedroom, and then I was like, well, there's no real need or requirement to have 6 bedrooms in this house. So, you know, I just decided. And then I also thought, if you don't have a bathroom on the upper floor, it doesn't really make much sense that your Sims who have their bedrooms upstairs have to come down to the lower floor to use the bathrooms. So I was like, it just gives the Sims upstairs a little bit more independence too. But yeah, there's nothing really too much going on in this bathroom, to be honest. I tried to decorate it pretty similarly to the other bathroom, which is the main family bathroom. And then we actually move on to I think this is my favourite bedroom of the house. No, this is my favourite bedroom of the house. This is the teen room. I had a really good time with this because I was initially thinking, oh, I'm going to use that bed from the high school years pack. And if you've been around the channel for a while, you will know exactly which bed I am talking about. But then I was like, don't do that, because I do it all the time. So what I end up using this bed from Adventure Awaits, which I just thought it's so cool. I love checkered bed sheets. I don't know why. Not necessarily in real life, but in The Sims, I think it just adds an extra level of coziness, and I'm all for that. So we went for like a blue, green, brown colour scheme in here, which I thought was kind of nice. I was initially thinking of carpeting both of the kids' bedrooms, and looking back, I wish I had have done that. So if you want to change that up, please feel free. Obviously, again, you know, feel free to change up whatever you need to fit your particular requirements in game. But I was just really excited to do a colour scheme that I haven't really... No, of course I've done a blue, green and brown colour scheme, but I think heavy on the brown. You know, typically I will choose like a colour, like a colour, because I don't think brown's really a colour. There's probably going to be someone that says, of course, brown's a colour. I don't mean like, I'm meaning like red, blue or green or yellow or whatever. But I wanted it to be a little bit more flexible in the other colours that I could use. And I also wanted to try and use a different colour of wallpaper in here too, just to make it look a little bit more youthful, because this is the teenagers' room. So we've already done the room for the grandparents. We're now onto the teenagers' bedroom. Then we move on to the child's bedroom. So we do tick off 3 of the life stages on the ground floor, which again, I'm really interested and intrigued to hear what all your thoughts are about that, because obviously with the shape of the house, I could not have fitted 5 bedrooms on that upper floor. There was just no way. So and that was down to my choice. This is the shape and style of house that I wanted to create. But let me know. I really wouldn't mind it as a player, but obviously, you know, I'm not too seasoned in the sort of gameplay era or the gameplay aspect of the game. So I don't see a problem, but I'd be very interested to kind of hear what all your thoughts are. But yeah, we're just adding some clutter in here. I'm obsessed with this. I think every time I add a lava lamp to a teen room, I immediately say I am obsessed with this room, and it's just because I think the lighting just adds to the overall vibe and the ambiance, as it were. So I'm always obsessed with it. And we love lava lamps on the channel. I actually have a lava lamp in my own office in real life. So I do tend to add lava lamps as and where I can. And they do tend to be in teen rooms. Sometimes I'll put them in a child's bedroom, but more often than not, they're in teen rooms. I'm not even sure how popular lava lamps are now. They were a huge thing in the 80s and 90s, right? But particularly the 90s. I know they've been around since the 80s, but I feel like in the 90s they were just a whole vibe. But are they a thing now? I'm really not sure. I'm not like down with the kids anymore, as it were, you know, because I'm getting on a bit now. I'm in my 30s, so it's like, oh, I'm just feeling really old at the moment. Anyway, but I would have loved a bedroom like this as a teen. Now, the only thing for me in terms of realism, would you want, as a teenage boy, would you want your bedroom to open up onto the living room? Probably not. But if I had have added a corridor or a hallway, quote unquote, so that you could access these bedrooms, we would have been losing space on either the bedrooms or the living room itself, which obviously the living room it's not small, but it's smaller than I would have wanted it to be for a house of this size. So that's why I decided to do this. If you want to add a hallway, if this bothers you, go ahead. Absolutely go ahead. I'm not going to be offended. I was just thinking, I think in terms of realism, definitely add a hallway. If you're not too fussed about that sort of stuff, then that's fine too. Like you can just lock the doors and then only allow that particular sim in there, you know? So there's ways around it. But that's the teen room done, and then we move on to the child's bedroom, which is a little bit bigger than I would usually like for a single child. I think for a room this size I would have wanted twins in here, but I had already decided on the family dynamic before I started building the house, and twin children was not on the cards, unfortunately. So that's why I didn't add this have this as a twin bedroom. Oh my goodness. I think I'm running out of steam because we're almost 45 minutes in to an almost, I mean, I think this is going to be end up being like almost an hour long video, which I always love putting out longer videos for you all, because I think a lot of people really enjoy watching longer videos. I know I do when I'm watching Sims content, and sort of, yeah, watching Sims content from other creators. I think the longer the content, the better. But yeah, wow, an hour for a speed build. That just proves how long this build took me to do. It was a labor of love, this build, but anyway, yes. So what I end up doing is I end up adding a built-in wardrobe to this room, just to make the room a little bit more of a dynamic shape, because I've spoken about this many times on the channel as well. If I've got a more, like, not necessarily a square bedroom, if I've got like a little bump out here and there, I find those bedrooms much easier to work with and to decorate. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, or if that's just me, but I always feel like they're just easier to decorate because they're not as square. Especially, I mean, I'm saying that the teen room worked out quite well, but if you noticed, I put the desk on an angle just to create a little bit more of like a visually interesting space, if that makes sense. And then with this room we put the built-in wardrobe in. So yeah, it's just interesting how my brain works when I'm decorating. But I love the color scheme that we went for in here. It's very soft and kind of creamy. We've also got like pops of lime green and pink and yellow in here, which I thought worked together so beautifully. And again, just thinking about different activities that the child can do in here. So we've got a dollhouse. I don't know if the kids can do anything with the built-in wardrobe. I don't know whether they can play pretend in there or whether I'm just making that up. I probably am. And then we've got like a little activity table there. We've got, do I end up adding a bookcase? I hope I do. Oh yes, I do. There's a bookcase in here as well, so obviously they can do some reading, and it's just a really cute space. It was really important for me to decorate each of the spaces according to each of the types of Sims that I thought would be occupying each of the bedrooms, which I tend to do. It's just something that I like to do. I like to think about, you know, what each Sim would be into, what colours they'd be into, activities, and because I really think with bedrooms, especially kids' bedrooms in The Sims, you can really kind of think about those sort of things, which is another reason that I adore decorating kids' bedrooms. And so that's the child's bedroom done. And then when we move on to the upper floor, we do start working on the bathroom here. You will see that I go through a few different layout changes in here, just while I was trying to work out what worked best, because it's a very unusual shape for a bathroom. So I think if this had been a bedroom, I'd have been all right. But because it's a bathroom, I was like, oh, I'm not really sure how to lay this out, but I do end up landing on this particular layout here, which I think works quite well. And by the end of it, I think we filled the space really nicely. So you'll have to let me know what you think. But it was really important for me to add a bathroom up here because the parents' bedroom does not have an ensuite. I'm sorry, I had to pause because I was like, oh no, I don't want anyone to be mad at me. But the parents' bedroom does not have an ensuite. They do have a balcony though. They've got their own private balcony. So I feel like that kind of makes up for it. You know, if they want to get away from the family just for a couple of hours and enjoy a glass of nectar on the balcony and look out, then they can definitely do that. So I feel like if I was a parent, I would probably spend a lot of time on that balcony just, you know, getting my own, like my own brain just back in gear and just enjoying the silence. I mean, the balcony looks out onto the pool, so if the kids are playing in the pool, I'm not sure how silent it would be, but it's nice that they can keep an eye on the kids from there as well. But yeah, still decorating the bathroom. I had definitely underestimated just how long I was actually doing this for. But one thing I added in here, which I thought was a really nice touch, is one of the dining chairs from not one of the dining chairs from downstairs, is a dining chair just to kind of pop in there. I thought that was so nice. I feel like I've seen pictures of bathrooms, you know, just in passing or wherever, especially big bathrooms, and they always seem to have like a really cute chair that they perhaps put towels and things on. I was like, oh, okay, I'll add a chair in here because this is a very big, grand bathroom. But yeah, we've done that, and now we're moving on to the shared bedroom between the toddler and the infant. So this was interesting because I was initially going to put the infant in with the parents, and then when I saw the size of the bedroom, I was like, this is just a little bit too big for one toddler. In my opinion, there might be people shouting at this screen now going, Rachel, this is not too big for a toddler. I think about decorating, you're thinking about gameplay, so you're probably right. But I did decide to let them share this bedroom, which I thought was a nice idea, because the way that I'm looking at it, if you're sort of doing gameplay where the teenager's perhaps going to be going off to university soon, they might be staying on campus, then their room may become free for the kids to kind of do a little bit of a room swap situation. I don't know why I just had trouble getting my words out there. A room swap situation where the teen moves out, etc. Because, you know, I don't know how it's going to work in terms of gameplay, but it's really not a problem, I don't think, that the toddler and the infant share this bedroom. And so I was thinking, okay, well, what items would a toddler and an infant need in here? So we've obviously got the changing table, the crib, the little toddler bed. Toddler beds, I'm so sorry, in real life and in The Sims are the cutest things ever. Like, it's such a cute concept that a tiny human is going to sleep in a tiny like bed, like an actual bed. I don't know. I really don't. But there's also an infant playmat in there as well, because if you remember, we did not put one in the living room. So I do add that one in there. And then lastly, we work on the parents' bedroom. So again, going for a very blue colour scheme in here. And do I end up using this bed? I feel like I do, but maybe in a different swatch. Yes, this darker swatch, which I just loved. There's a big fireplace in here as well, with a couple of chairs in front of it and like a mini table. This room is an entire vibe. Honestly, I think if I had this bedroom in real life with a balcony and a fireplace, I likely would never leave. I just wouldn't. I'd love to show this to my husband and be like, would you ever, like, if we had this bedroom, would you ever leave it? Or would we just live in here? He'd probably be like, yeah, we'd probably just live in here. So yeah, this is the fireplace going in, and this is one from Horse Ranch, which I thought just fit beautifully with the overall vibe of the house. And these two chairs here, please, are you telling me this is not just like a whole vibe? And we've got like a little rug under here as well. I'm loving this. Initially, I was thinking of putting mirrors all along the wall with the fire on it. And then I was like, it doesn't look quite right to me. So I ended up changing that out. And then I put a couple of lights on either side. I think we put a mirror just on this little wall here. And I can't remember what I put on the left, actually. I only finished this house, yesterday. And I cannot remember. Oh, it's like a little side table with some candles on it. That's right. And then some artwork above it, I think. But which artwork? I have no idea. We will see. Oh yes, and then I sized this up with Tool Mod, which I thought was just a nice touch. And then we very quickly, I think, decorate the balcony. And then that's pretty much it for the speed build portion of the video. So what we will do now is we will hop on back in game and we will do a live walkthrough of this house. Okay everyone, here is our Cape Cod-style Generations family home in Brindleton Bay. So this is the front of the house here, which we're probably at this point all quite familiar with. Our swing set over here. Look at this little bench. I would love to sit here. Honestly, I would. And like, you might get hit with the sprinkler, but that's okay. Especially on a summer's day, I feel like that would be welcomed. Okay, so we've got a few planter boxes out here as well. And then if we move on to the side here, we've got our chicken coop. We've got a few more planter boxes. We've also got a little seating area here with a cool box, which is kind of a nice touch as well. More planter boxes, some bee boxes, and then a little flower arranging station and our fire pit too. And then if we move on to this portion, we've got our play area here for the kiddos, a little toddler like paddling pool as well, which is like the cutest thing ever. And then our swimming pool. So this is the fencing that I added off camera and may or may not be there if you decide to download this house. So I apologize if you don't have this, but it looks so much better with it. So I would definitely suggest adding some sort of fencing if you do download this house and the fencing is not there. We've also got our like little seating area under here with the barbecue, which I think is kind of nice. We've also got a couple more chairs there as well. Our little diving board, and then we've got a couple of lounge chairs here underneath an umbrella, just like looking out onto the pool, keeping an eye on everybody and making sure we're all okay. We've got a basketball hoop here, another bike, another seating area. I know, who saw that coming? And then our sunken hot tub as well. So if we move on to the interior, I will give you a quick run through of this as well. So this is the entryway. So this is as you enter the house. So it's nice and big, nice and open. And then we've got the stairs off just to the left here. And then also to the left, we have the downstairs full bathroom for your Sims to enjoy, which is fantastic. And then if we go through this big archway here, we have our living room, which we love. It's not the biggest living room, especially considering the size of the family, but it's functional and it works, and I love how this colour scheme turned out as well. And then if we go through these big barn double doors here, we've got our kitchen dining space, which I think turned out really nicely. I love the overall vibe that we've got going on in here, and I think everything works really well. It's a very functional space for your Sim and their families. So yeah, we've got like a little cabinet just tucked in the back here, as well as a full little dining table here. And then let's move on to the grandparents' room first, because that's how we decorated it. So this is let's call this the grandparents' quarters, in fact, because if you wanted to turn this into more of like a functional space for the grandparents, you could give them a little kitchenette in here as well. There's plenty of space, so feel free to make any amendments that you see fit. So this is their bedroom here. We've got like their little fireplace, which I just love, and then a seating area here. They've also got their own door, so they've got access to and from the house, which I think is kind of a nice touch, and it just means that they're a little bit more independent as well. And then we've got their ensuite, nothing too fancy going on in here, but it fits with the rest of the bathrooms, and that's the main thing. And then if we move on to the teen room here, which is my favorite bedroom of this house, I am obsessed with the vibes in here. Honestly, I love it so much. It looks fantastic. I think this Sim has a wide variety of interests. I think he's into gaming, art, skiing, aliens, sport, music. I think this Sim is into all sorts of stuff. So that's what I wanted to try and portray in this particular room. And then if we move on to the child's bedroom here, we've got our built-in wardrobe, which is very nice. We've got the chest of drawers, a little activity table. We've got this dollhouse from the Horse Ranch pack. I'm sorry, but this is the cutest dollhouse ever. I love that so much. We've got a bookcase here. We've got like a little rocking chair. We've got an old guitar as well, because I think maybe this Sim enjoys playing the guitar. We've got like a little bedside table here with some trinkety bits, an alarm clock, and a teeny tiny camera as well, which we're obsessed with. Okay, so that's the downstairs. If we move on to the upper floor, we've got our huge family bathroom up here, which we love. We love her. She's chonky, but she's cool. You know, she's functional, and there's a lot of space going on in here. I also added a little potty here for when you need to potty train your toddler, and of course infant when they move on to the next life stage. And speaking of toddlers and infants, this is the toddler and infant shared bedroom. Everything you need, hopefully, I haven't missed anything, everything you need in here to tend to a toddler and an infant. So we've got a little rocking chair here, because I think your adult Sims, or older Sims, sorry, can rock the infants to sleep. I don't know if it's functional with toddlers, but I did decide to add this little rocking chair in here. Changing table, and then just like this, but that's not really functional. And then we've got a little bookcase on here as well, which is fantastic. And then lastly, moving on to the parents' bedroom, which I love. I like it because it's not overly decorated or anything like that. I think it's just a really nice, functional, classy space. We've got our fireplace here, which we love, a couple of chairs in front as well. Nice big wardrobe and a mirror just here as well. And then they've got access to their own private balcony. Like, can you just imagine taking in the views from here? Like, that would be so nice. Anyway, so if you'd like to download this house, it's available from the gallery right now. My origin ID is RachelPedd. Tray files, as always, are linked down in the description box just below. You can get them from SimFileShare. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining me here today. You all take care, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.